There's a moment, a split second, when a man realizes she's not just gone, she's irreplaceable. And it's not always when you expect it. Not after a fight, not after the breakup, but much later, when something small reminds him of you, and he realizes no one else feels quite like you. See, most women think that if he's not calling, not texting, not chasing, he doesn't care. But here's the truth. Men process loss differently. And the kind of woman he misses like crazy. She knows this. She doesn't beg, chase, or plead for attention, because she understands the power of absence. You might think he's forgotten you. But what if I told you he's just starting to feel the weight of losing you? Because now he's beginning to understand what he had and what he'll never find again. In this video, I'm going to break down the real reason men miss certain women, not just casually, but deeply, painfully, obsessively. And by the end, you'll know exactly what triggers that feeling in his mind that keeps you stuck in his thoughts, even if he pretends you're not. Let's talk about why you might be the one woman he'll never forget. When a relationship ends, most people assume that men move on faster, that they're emotionally detached, or maybe even relieved. But that's rarely the full truth. While women often feel the emotional weight immediately, men experience regret on a delayed curve. And the reason comes down to how they're wired emotionally. You see, men are taught, consciously or not, to compartmentalize. They push pain to the side, distract themselves, stay busy, act like everything is fine. At first, it even looks like he's doing great. He might post more on social media, hang out with friends, maybe even start dating again. But underneath that surface confidence is a mind quietly sorting through loss. And it's usually when things get quiet, when the distractions stop, that the regret starts creeping in. Unlike women, who tend to reflect and process pain through communication, men often feel most intensely in solitude. It's in those quiet, unguarded moments, driving alone, lying awake at night, hearing a song that reminds him of you, when he begins to feel the emptiness. Not just of your absence, but of what you represented. Comfort, connection, admiration, consistency, things he likely didn't fully appreciate in the moment. Here's what's most surprising. Male regret isn't just about missing someone. It's about realizing what he failed to protect. The memory of your patience, your loyalty, your love, especially if you were consistent and didn't chase, becomes a mirror. And that mirror reflects his own emotional immaturity, his unhealed wounds, his inability to show up. The deeper the connection, the more profound the regret. And if you walked away with grace, with dignity, not trying to convince him to stay, that haunts him even more, because now you're not just the one who loved him, you're the one who respected yourself enough to leave. And it's in that realization, sometimes weeks or even months later, when it hits him you were never chasing him. He was the one who should have been chasing you all along. That's when the regret stops being quiet and starts becoming unbearable. There are certain moments, small, almost invisible, that suddenly hit a man like a wave. They don't announce themselves. There's no warning. 1 second he's going about his day, and the next he's flooded with emotion, thinking about you. That's not random. That's what emotional triggers do. And if you've left a real imprint on him, he'll feel it whether he wants to or not. Contrary to what many believe, men don't miss you because you were always available, always nice, always saying yes. No. What he misses is the way you made him feel about himself when he was with you, when he felt seen, understood, desired, or even challenged in just the right way. And when those emotional touch points are gone, his mind starts searching for them again, and it brings him back to you. One of the strongest triggers is nostalgia, and it often shows up in the most ordinary moments. A certain smell, a song playing in the background at a restaurant, a laugh that sounds like yours. These aren't just passing memories, they're neural cues that awaken emotional associations he thought were buried. And the more emotionally rich the memory, the harder it is to ignore. But it's not just about memories. Men are triggered by contrast. When he meets someone new, and they don't get his humor the way you did, when they don't challenge him in the same way, when they don't feel safe like you did, it highlights the gap between what he has now and what he had with you. And that gap creates longing. Another major trigger, silence. Your silence. Especially if you used to be the one reaching out, checking in, showing love. When that energy stops, it's not just the loss of attention he feels, it's the emotional void that your presence used to fill. And because you're no longer supplying it, he has nothing to distract himself from the emptiness. that silence becomes louder than any words. And then there's curiosity, a subtle, powerful emotional driver. When you disappear without drama, without begging, without explanation, his mind starts to spin. Why isn't she chasing me? Why does she seem okay without me? That mystery triggers something primal in him. Men are wired to pursue. And when they sense you've removed your emotional availability, it flips a switch. The need to solve the puzzle becomes a need to reconnect. But perhaps the deepest emotional trigger is realizing that you've evolved without him. That while he was unsure, you were leveling up, emotionally, spiritually, even physically. And now the version of you that he once took for granted, she's not waiting anymore. She's glowing, she's at peace, and she's unreachable. That's when it stops being about missing the past, and starts being about missing the version of himself that only existed when he was with you. And that kind of emotional trigger, it lingers. As much as we talk about what makes a man miss you, we also need to be honest about what prevents that from ever happening. Because yes, there are things, subtle behaviors, desperate choices, unconscious habits, that completely shut down his ability to feel your absence. And unfortunately, many women do these things thinking they're keeping the connection alive, when in reality, they're pushing him further away. One of the biggest reasons a man won't miss you is constant access. If you're always available, always responding immediately, always there to talk even after a breakup, where's the space for him to feel your loss? He doesn't get the chance to experience what it's like without you, because you're still emotionally present. And if you're always there, he doesn't need to wonder. He doesn't need to miss. He doesn't need to feel anything different. Another block? Over-communication. When you're sending long texts, explaining your side, checking in to just see how he's doing, it might come from a place of love or closure seeking. But to him it's pressure. And when a man feels emotionally pressured or cornered, his instinct isn't to reflect, it's to retreat. It doesn't make him miss you. It makes him want to escape. Then there's begging, pleading, convincing. The more you try to remind him of your value, the less he has to remember it for himself. And that's the key. Missing someone only happens when you're gone. Emotionally, mentally, energetically. The moment you try to force him to see what he had, you take away his opportunity to realize it on his own. And realization has to come from him, not from your efforts to prove your worth. There's also resentment energy. You might not say it outright, but if you're angry, bitter, posting cryptic quotes, or throwing subtle shade online, he can feel that. And it doesn't draw him back. It reinforces the narrative that leaving was the right choice. Missing someone comes from remembering the goodness they brought into your life, not the emotional chaos after they left. And here's one most people overlook: chasing your own healing just to get him back. If you're working on yourself, leveling up, glowing up, but the energy behind it is secretly tied to making him notice, that energy bleeds through. It's performative, not authentic. And men can sense when you're doing something for you versus doing something to get a reaction. True detachment is powerful, but fake detachment, it's transparent. Ultimately, he doesn't miss you when he still feels your emotional grip. Even if you're not calling, even if you're quiet, if he knows you're still waiting, still checking, still hoping, there's no urgency, no fear of loss, no trigger to miss you. He starts to miss you when your energy disappears. When you reclaim your self-worth, when you stop orbiting around his potential and start living fully in your own, that's when the silence becomes deafening. And that's when missing begins. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a message, a powerful, undeniable one. And when used with intention, it speaks louder than anything you could ever say. For many women, silence feels like giving up. It feels like disconnecting, like losing control. But in reality, silence paired with emotional detachment and self-respect is often the most effective thing you can do to truly shift a man's energy and make him feel the weight of your absence. Here's why: when you stop reaching out, when you don't react to his breadcrumbs, when you resist the urge to explain, fix, or prove your worth, you break a pattern, and that pattern, up until now, may have been feeding his comfort. Maybe he didn't show up fully because deep down, he knew you'd always be there, responding, waiting, hoping. The moment you go silent, that certainty disappears. and for the first time he has to wonder. Silence creates space, not just physical space, but emotional space. It gives him room to feel your absence instead of taking your presence for granted. It gives you space to reconnect with yourself, to ground, to heal, to reflect on what you actually need. And in that space, something critical happens. The emotional dynamic begins to shift. You're no longer orbiting around him. You're not reacting to his silence with more noise. You're not trying to fill the gap. You're letting the gap speak for itself. Men often realize what they lost when they start noticing what's missing, and they only feel what's missing when it's truly gone. Silence interrupts his emotional autopilot. It cuts off the supply of validation, attention, and reassurance. It removes the emotional safety net that kept him comfortable but unmotivated to act. Without that, he's left with only his thoughts, and his regret, his confusion, his longing begins to echo louder in the void you've created. But silence only works when it's real. It's not just about not texting him. It's about shifting your focus away from him completely, energetically detaching, not stalking his social media, not talking about him constantly, not secretly hoping he'll come back every time your phone pings. Real silence comes from a place of emotional self-control, of knowing that your value doesn't depend on how fast he realizes it. And the thing about space, it forces him to fill in the blanks. He doesn't know what you're thinking, where you are emotionally, or if you've moved on. That uncertainty can be agonizing for someone who used to have full access to your mind and heart. It makes him reflect. It makes him question. It makes him miss the connection that used to feel so secure. When done right, silence isn't punishment, it's power. And sometimes the loudest way to say you lost something valuable is to say absolutely nothing at all. No contact isn't just a strategy, it's a mirror. A deeply uncomfortable, often delayed mirror for both people, but especially for him. At first, it may look like he's unaffected. He may seem calm, even relieved. You're the one in pain, doing the emotional heavy lifting, staying silent while he's out living his life. But what's actually happening underneath the surface is much more complex, because the further the distance grows, the louder the realizations begin. At first, he tells himself it's temporary. He thinks she'll reach out eventually. He relies on the past version of you, the one who forgave quickly, who checked in when he pulled away, who always cared more. But when days turn into weeks and you don't reach out, something shifts. His mind starts to go places it hasn't been before. That silence begins to feel real. And what he used to take for granted starts to feel like something he might actually lose. During no contact, the first realization he has is about comfort. Not love, not yet, but comfort. The small, consistent ways you showed up. The way you listened when no one else did. The support you gave without asking for anything in return. When he no longer has that emotional safety net, he starts to feel exposed, vulnerable, unstable. That's when he starts wondering if he underestimated what you actually brought to his life. Then comes the realization of emotional connection. He might be around other people, even other women, but it doesn't feel the same. There's no emotional depth, no real spark. The conversations feel empty. The laughter doesn't hit the same. And it's in those moments that he starts comparing, not just comparing others to you, but comparing himself when he was with you versus who he is now. He begins to see how much of his emotional fulfillment came from your presence, and how dull things feel without it. Another key realization, that you're no longer under his control. When he no longer knows where you are emotionally, what you're thinking, or if you're moving on, he loses the upper hand. And if he was the one who ended things or pulled away, this realization hits even harder, because now it's not about whether you want him back. It's about whether he still has access to you. That shift in power triggers ego. Yes, but also genuine reflection. Eventually the biggest realization emerges. He might have lost someone irreplaceable, and it doesn't matter how many distractions he throws at himself. That quiet ache, that voice in the back of his mind, it keeps whispering that he messed up. And the more you remain in your power, the stronger that voice becomes. No contact doesn't work because it's a game. It works because it forces a man to confront what life really feels like without you. And if you were the real thing, if your presence was meaningful, That silence becomes a spotlight, not on what he thought he wanted, but on what he can't stop thinking about now that it's gone. There's always a moment, a quiet, unspectacular moment where everything suddenly clicks for him. And it doesn't happen during the fight, or right after the breakup, or even while you're walking away. No, that moment happens much later, when he's alone, when life slows down, when something reminds him of you. And for the first time, he can't push the memory away. That's when he starts remembering your value. Not just the surface things, the laughs, the photos, the chemistry, but the real value, the kind that goes unnoticed until it's gone. It often begins with comparison. He talks to someone new, and they don't ask about his day the way you did. They don't challenge him or calm him or see him the way you did. The conversations feel shallow. The connection feels forced. And that's when it hits him. You made him feel safe and excited, understood, without needing to explain himself. That balance is rare. And now it's missing. Then he starts replaying things he used to overlook. The way you listened without judgment. The way you supported him even when he didn't deserve it. The way your presence made everything a little softer, a little more stable. He starts seeing how you handled his moods, his fears, his silence, not with resentment, but with patience. And suddenly the emotional maturity you brought to the table becomes crystal clear. What's most powerful is that this realization doesn't come because you told him to value you. It comes because you stopped trying to prove your worth. That silence you've held, that absence of energy, it forces him to do the one thing he wasn't doing before, reflect. And when a man starts truly reflecting, he begins to connect dots he never noticed when you were close. He sees where he fell short. He sees where you rose above. He sees the difference between convenience and real connection. The moment he remembers your value is also the moment his illusion of control starts to shatter. Because now you're not waiting, you're not chasing, you're not validating him from a distance. And that space makes everything clearer, not just for you but for him too. He realizes you were never just someone he dated. You were someone who showed up for him, for the relationship, for love. And worst of all for him, he realizes you showed up for him more than he ever showed up for you. That's when the ache starts. Not the dramatic kind, but the deep, quiet kind that lives in the background of his thoughts. Every time he scrolls, every time he hears your name, every time he sees something that reminds him of what used to be normal. But it's not normal anymore. It's distant. And now it's out of reach. By the time he remembers your value, you've probably already stepped into your own. When a man starts obsessively thinking about you, he doesn't always say it out loud. In fact, most of the time, he won't. His ego, his pride, or just pure confusion keeps him silent. But obsession has a way of revealing itself. Not through what he says, but through what he does, what he avoids, and where his attention keeps circling back. One of the first signs is random, unexplained check-ins. A text at midnight saying, "Hey, just thought of you." A reply to a story you didn't even post for him. A song he sends that reminded him of you. These seem casual on the surface, but they come from a mind that's spinning. He's looking for a thread, any thread, to stay connected. Even the smallest response from you is enough to calm that internal noise for a moment, because it's not just curiosity, it's restlessness. Another sign is sudden activity on your social media. Maybe he never paid attention before, but now he's watching everything. He's the first to view your stories. He likes a post from weeks ago by accident. He engages in ways that feel subtle but intentional, because you're on his mind more than he's willing to admit. He may not message you directly at first, but that consistent digital presence, that's no coincidence. That's mental obsession leaking into action. Then comes the emotional flip-flopping. One day he's cold or distant, and the next he's overly warm or nostalgic. That's not clarity. That's mental chaos. He's torn between wanting to move on and not being able to. The memories keep pulling him back. He plays it cool to protect himself, but the emotional undertow is stronger than he expected. That inconsistency you're feeling, that's the war happening in his head. He might also try to provoke a reaction from you. Posting certain things online, showing off, talking about how happy he is now. But look closer, it doesn't feel natural, it feels performed. That's obsession trying to get your attention in disguise. He wants you to see it, to feel something. Because if he can't stop thinking about you, he wants to believe you're still thinking about him too. Another powerful sign. He starts showing up in your orbit again. Mutual friends mention him. You run into him in places you never used to see him before. He finds reasons to reconnect, maybe under the guise of closure or just being friends, but really he's craving contact. Even a small piece of your energy is better than none. What he doesn't realize is that obsession isn't a choice, it's a consequence. When someone brings emotional safety, connection or depth into your life, and you let that go without truly appreciating it, the mind won't let it go quietly. It loops, it fixates, it replays. So if you're wondering whether he's obsessively thinking about you, the answer isn't just in his words, it's in the patterns, the presence, the inconsistency, and the energy that keeps finding its way back to you, no matter how far he tries to run. Knowing that a man can miss you, obsess over you, and regret losing you is powerful. But what you do with that knowledge is what really matters. Because the goal isn't just to make him suffer in silence or chase after your absence. The goal is to shift the dynamic in your favor, to take back your emotional power without losing your self-worth in the process. First, understand this. Your value is not in how much effort you put into being chosen. Your value is in how confidently you remove yourself from situations where you're not respected. When you truly absorb that, everything changes. You stop reacting. You stop chasing clarity. You stop trying to convince someone to see what's right in front of them. Instead, you let them feel what it's like when you're gone, and you let the silence speak for itself. Now, using this knowledge to your advantage doesn't mean playing games. It means becoming strategic with your energy. If you know he's obsessively thinking about you, watching you, feeling your absence, then showing up in your full power without needing anything from him becomes your secret weapon. Live your life, elevate yourself, glow in ways that have nothing to do with him, because that's what creates the deepest impact. He doesn't just miss the old you. Now he realizes you're becoming someone he might not even have access to anymore. Another advantage, you stop reacting emotionally to breadcrumbs. A late night text doesn't shake you. A passive like on your post doesn't make you spiral. Why? Because now you understand what's really behind those actions. Unresolved emotions, confusion, guilt, obsession, not true clarity or commitment. And when you stop giving power to his inconsistency, you regain control of the emotional space. You also become more discerning. Just because he misses you doesn't mean he deserves you back. Missing someone isn't the same as being ready for them. So when he circles back, and he probably will, you'll be ready to ask yourself the real question: is he reaching out because he values me now, or just because he can't handle the discomfort of losing me? Use this knowledge to strengthen your standards, to stop settling for crumbs, to stop needing closure or validation, to realize that your silence, your absence, your self-respect, these are not weaknesses. They are signals. They tell the world and him that you are not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't meet your worth. Because the real power isn't in making him miss you. The real power is in becoming the version of yourself who no longer needs him to. And once you reach that place, everything and everyone starts to shift. As we wrap up this video, it's important to remember that the journey of understanding why a man misses you isn't just about him. It's about you and your own growth. When someone starts to miss you like crazy, it's often because you held a space for something real, something meaningful, something rare. But the truth is, your worth doesn't depend on his realization or his timing. It depends on how you honor yourself through every step of the process. The lessons here are simple but powerful. Understanding the emotional triggers, recognizing what can stop him from missing you, and harnessing the power of silence and space. These are tools. Tools to help you reclaim your emotional power, to stop chasing what isn't meant for you, and to create the space where true connection can flourish, if it's meant to be. What you do next matters more than anything. Whether you're waiting for him to come around or choosing to move forward without looking back, your mindset shapes your reality. Choose to focus on your healing, your growth, and your happiness first. Because when you build a life that's vibrant, full, and joyful on your own terms, you become irresistible. Not because you're trying to be, but because you are. If he's meant to be part of your future, he'll realize it. But if not, you'll be in the best possible place to attract someone who truly values you without all the emotional turmoil. Remember, being missed is not about manipulation or control. It's about authentic absence, genuine self-love, and the courage to walk away with dignity. So take this knowledge, apply it wisely, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. The right love will never require you to shrink, chase, or silence your worth. Thank you for watching and investing this time in yourself. If you found value in this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might need it. And don't forget to check out the other videos on this channel for more insights on love, relationships, and personal growth. Your best chapter is still ahead.